If there's one thing we love here, it's perseverance. The stories of the athlete who defied all the odds against them to do something unimaginable in athletics, especially the stories of the athlete who was so humble that they kept their prize achievements, in this case, 3 Olympic medals, in a candy box in their top dresser drawer. And they didn't just persevere at the highest level of sport. They had to overcome a near-death accident to reach the height in their sport for a second time. This is what you don't know about track and field gold medalist Betty Robinson. Welcome to What You Don't Know About Sports, where we delve into the forgotten stories, teams, and athletes of sports history and question widely held takes on today's sports. I'm Blake. This is Matt.
Howdy.
Today we're going to talk about an absolute trailblazer in the sport of track and field, specifically women's track and field, the first ever and still the youngest gold medalist in the women's 100-meter sprint, Betty Robinson. I never heard this story until recently, but it is amazing. So we're gonna tell you all about it. First, I want to know, Matt, what is your favorite Summer Olympic sport to watch?
I feel like every Olympics, whether it's summer or winter, everybody has that niche sport that they just get into and love. And for me, I'm probably in the majority during the Olympics, but for me in general, if you just have things racing one another, I'm down to watch it. So any of that stuff, but those things are common answers. So I'm going to go outside the norm here. The one kind of niche sport that I get into for the Summer Olympics, water polo. It is interesting to me. I would never be able to swim that way, and so the fact that they are playing this sport without dying is enthralling to me. And then there's just so much going on. And at first you can't tell what's going on because there's just water splashing everywhere and people like bouncing up and down out of the water. But like I don't know. It's like weird soccer hockey underwater.
I was going to say, is it equivalent to like soccer, but with your hands and in a pool?
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, the part that blows me away the most is that they're clearly they're nowhere near touching the bottom of this pool.
Oh no.
And when they get up to shoot, it's like thighs out of the water. Like, how are you getting that high with nothing to push off of? It's
leg strength.
Like, I don't know what's going on.
Something that we don't have, apparently, because if that's leg strength, I will never have it.
Like, how high are they jumping on like actual ground if they're getting out of the water like that? Put those dudes in the
I was going to say, should they be like attending the combine and breaking records like at the NFL combine or the dunk contest or something? Because they must. They like talk about Saquon Barkley being Quadzilla. Like, we may have never seen a water polo player out of the water.
Because they have tails. They don't have legs.
They don't actually walk on 2 feet. No. We figured it out. Okay.
Yeah.
I think water polo is one of the more interesting ones. I'm not going to be boring and say like golf or soccer or the more traditional sports. I think I'm just going to back you on water polo and we're going to move on. That sounds fun.
Although a close second is anything where like the rowing.
Oh yeah.
Seems like it would be boring as all get out, but like that's things racing against each other. So let's go.
Yeah. I mean, it's all competitive. It's all competition, but there is a difference in like an individual sport where there's only one person competing at a time versus more than one, like in a race, like track and field, for example, where it's arguably the 100-meter dash is arguably the most electrifying Olympic sport, possibly the most electrifying, like 10 seconds in sports, period, just because it's over that fast. And it's just amazing to watch those people move, because it looks unhuman, but it's almost like your water polo tail example. It's like there's no way they're actually running that fast, but it's incredible. Speaking of running fast, Elizabeth Robinson was born on August 23rd, 1911 in Riverdale, Illinois. She attended Thornton Township High School. Shout out to everyone who has or does attend that school. If you're listening, that'd be sick, wouldn't it? She, quote, grew up a hick, if you asked her. She played guitar, acted in school plays, and while she ran in less traditional or less competitive races, quote unquote, like foot races and stuff, she did stuff like that with her church. She wasn't really aware that it was possible for women to run, how would you say, competitively, in a formal and competitive environment. And that's probably because where she grew up, and it being in the 19-teens and the 1920s, there wasn't that many possibilities for that sort of thing. So it's very possible it just wasn't brought to her attention. She didn't know until one day. Here's the story. There's one of the stories, and we know how history is portrayed through journalism in the early 1900s. But this is the story. She was running late for her train home from school one day, and her science teacher, Charles Price, was standing on the train platform and looked back and could see her, Robinson, running toward the commuter train. Pretty sure, apparently, that she was not going to catch that train. Like, she was far enough away. The train was arriving, too much distance to cover. So Price walks onto the train. As the door closes, he sits down in a seat. And just a couple seconds later, he looks over, and guess who's sitting beside him? Somehow catching the train that should have never been caught. Betty Robinson. And so Price, a former track athlete himself, and the coach of the men's track team at her high school, was impressed at how fast she could run, thinking there was no way she should be able to sprint fast enough to catch the train, but she did. And so the next day in school, Price asks Robinson to run a 50-yard dash in the hallway of the school to time her, just to see just how fast she could run. Well, apparently he was impressed, and he immediately told her that she should train with the boys' track team. So she obliged, and she did. And within a few weeks, Robinson finished second in an official 100-meter dash. It was her very first official race. She finished second to the world record holder at the time, Helen Filke. Talk about cutting your teeth on just
no training, just show up. I'm the second best runner in the world.
Yep.
Talent.
Yeah.
It's just talent. Yeah. Raw talent.
Seems like it, right?
Yeah.
We always talk about like sports people, I say, talk about like the born versus bred, and how some people are just hard workers versus some people are natural gifted athletes and whatever. But like on very, very little training, she is just fast.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't think there's any other way to see this. So she was basically immediately thereafter invited to join the Illinois Athletic Women's Club, which was a club track and field group. So 3 months after this, in only her second ever 100-meter dash officially, she defeated Filke, the world record holder at the time, and depending on which account or story you read about this, she either tied the world record or she broke it that day. Either way, it was like a 12.2 second world record at the time or something. Either way, whether she broke it and ran like a 12 flat or she tied it at a 12.2 or whatever it was, again, no training. Like just imagine like the kid on the schoolyard who is not on any sports team, but is just better than everybody else. How do you explain that other than just being naturally athletic and gifted.
There's not. I mean, that's what it is, right? She just shows up and is world class. And you have to think in a sports environment like it is now, where there is more equality and focus paid to girls' sports, women's sports, that she would have been identified as being fast before this point. Like we've got a middle school cross country team around here. So like speed and agility and things like that would have been identified, but clearly not something they were looking for in her, because this was like high school. Like she is older before anybody says, wow, you can really move quickly, and value that in any kind of like competitive way. So like a little hamstrung by her era, but the ability to just show up and be that good, I can't think of a parallel where somebody just gets picked up and is world class, like a Jim Thorpe situation.
I was going to say Jim Thorpe, with the time period and the track and field relation at the time. But again, and he wasn't like a child prodigy, but yeah, that was the name that I thought of also.
But that's what this is. This is prodigy level. Now, maybe maybe in other parts of the country, in other situations, there are similar people at that time who don't get identified and don't show up to race, can't show up to race, aren't allowed to show up and race. So I don't know. Maybe there are other people like her. We just don't know about them.
Sure.
But we do know about her, and that's incredible to just show up and be at that level with no training. I mean, we keep harping on that, but that's just, I don't know, different.
The definition of world class, like you said. So 1 month after either tying or breaking the world record, Robinson went to Newark, New Jersey, which is where the Olympic trials were being held. Now, the upcoming 1928 Summer Olympics in Amsterdam was the first Summer Olympics, first Olympics in general, that women were allowed to compete in track and field. So this was a groundbreaking time in history for Betty Robinson to be discovered, because maybe if you add up all the times that I've said 1 month, 3 month, whatever, like 6 months before these Olympic qualifiers or so, less than a year, she was nobody. Like she just was not even being considered. She wasn't running for a club team. She wasn't running for a school track team. She was running to catch a freaking train to get home from school on time. And someone just said, "Oh, hey, look at that!" Like that's how close we were to not having this.
Didn't even know she could run competitively.
Right. Didn't know it was a thing. It's not like knowing like, oh, I know kids play basketball, or I know that like soccer's really popular, but like I'm not good enough. Like she apparently legitimately had no idea that it was possible for her to compete in such a thing on a formal level.
Wow. And
so she ends up in Newark, New Jersey for the Olympic trials just a few months after being told that how fast she was and discovering this. She ran 3 races in 1 hour at these Olympic trials, qualified to represent the U.S. in the 1928 Olympics in Amsterdam, which we don't need to go into it again, but it's still just mind-blowing. Anyway, so she's 16 years old at this point, okay? She gets on a ship with the rest of the U.S. Olympic team and heads to Europe. Now, it's like a 9-day trip across the ocean on this ship. And she was asked later, she said, quote, she loved every minute of it. There were 280 total Americans who made up the team and made up the group that was on this boat at the time. 18 of them were female track and field athletes. So a pretty reputable showing for the first ever time that they could even go over there. But because you're on a ship for 9 days, and then pretty much as soon as you get off the ship, you've got to go like compete against other world-class athletes. They trained on a track that was on the deck of the ship. So they would just run around the outside of the ship to train and to stay in shape until they got there. Now, In her third ever official 100-meter competition, she qualified for the Olympic finals. So you have the qualifying heats, and then whoever wins that or gets the best times between all the heats moves on. And so she was the only American to qualify for the finals. Again, 6 months prior, she wasn't even running track. Anyway, the final of the 100-meter race for the 1928 Olympics included 3 Canadians who were the heavy favorites in this race, 2 Germans, and then Betty Robinson being the lone American. Now, a 20-year-old Canadian runner named Fanny Rosenfeld had beaten Robinson in the qualifying heat. And prior to this Olympic showing, she had set numerous 100-meter world records, including in the trials. And so Rosenfeld seemed to be Robinson's primary competition in this race. I mean, of course, everyone there is world-class, is a world-class athlete. But, and you can actually watch the race on YouTube, the 100-meter race. And even knowing that was almost 100 years ago, they still look like they're moving at like an unhuman pace. They are running so fast. And so Robinson, being so young, of course, Rosenfeld was 24 years old. She was a veteran of the sport. Robinson being only 16, there had to be a little bit of nerves coming into this because she showed up to the final with 2 left shoes, as the story goes. So she didn't have like a left and a right. She showed up with a wrong shoe. And so someone had to run to the ship to go get 2 right shoes to bring to her just prior to the race start to make a proper pair for her to run in. Apparently, she also considered running barefoot, which, again, reminded me of the Jim Thorpe episode that we did in his story. Did you also have that thought?
Yeah, I was thinking the same idea. I was like, I'm pretty sure we've done something like this before. I also just popped in my head the perspective of this because she's 16. We started the story by saying that she described herself as a hick growing up. So imagine that life, 1920s, in the backwoods of Indiana, in short order. We're putting you on a ship across the Atlantic Ocean, which is mind-blowing enough for somebody from that place in that time. And then when you get there, you're in the Olympics and you're in the finals. Yeah, and I'm assuming they stayed on the ship. This was their home.
Yeah, that was basically their there was no like Olympic village or whatever they called it. They slept on the ship.
This is a completely, and she's had 9 days to get acclimated, which on one level is 9 days to get acclimated, and on the other level is like that's 9 days is all she's been able to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely different. It's a world that she has not been a part of for very long. So I'm sure there are nerves. And there's only 2 ways you can treat that situation is to just know you don't know what you're doing. So just do whatever, or you realize you don't know what you're doing and it is 1,000-pound gorilla on you. So, two left shoes is the least of her things that could have gone wrong for her. And that perspective for me, like thinking about it personally, that would be unreal. The culture shock that she had to face. That's crazy. But yeah, no, the Jim Thorpe thing as well. Also, one joke. There's no way, thank God for modern transportation. Can you imagine in 2020 we put all of our Summer Olympic athletes on a ship to go cruise to the Europe for 9 days?
Take 9 days to get over there?
Just the athletes. Throw them on a boat for 9 days. Nothing could go wrong.
Wow. What a party that would be. I don't like what I'm just imagining what things would transpire on that trip that would end up getting found out. Yeah, both good and bad. Man.
Like, we would be watching pickup basketball games from like some of the greatest athletes of all time. That would happen. And then, the other things.
All the other things.
Yeah.
All the other things. So back to Robinson's race. She's got two correct shoes, and she is ready to race. So it wasn't until the late 1940s that sprinters actually used blocks in sprints. So they just started in a crouched position, like a similar position to how it looks in the blocks. Your feet just aren't elevated and pushing off of anything. And so when the gun sounds, the race is immediately halted because 2 of the 6 runners committed false starts, and so they were obviously mad. One of them apparently like shook her fist at the official and quote vowed revenge or something because of like kicking her out of this Olympic final race, and then the other one just like ran off in tears because I mean I can only imagine being that close and then having that happen. But so now there's only 4 people on the starting line. Now I'm going to walk you through it. Robinson and Rosenfeld. If you're looking like as a traditional camera would look at a 100-meter starting line, like kind of on the left side of your screenish, Rosenfeld is all the way to the left. So she's in like the outside most lane. Robinson is right beside her on the inside. Just to the inside of Robinson is Germany's Erna Steinberg. And then actually 2 lanes away from her is a second Canadian, Ethel Smith. And so, again, just watching this on video is incredible because they are still just moving at an unrealistic pace. So gun fires just over 12 seconds. I mean, you know how excited a 100-meter dash is. Just over 12 seconds after the gun sounds, Robinson and Rosenfeld essentially cross the line, what looks simultaneous because you don't have the cool like cheetah cam that's like running right beside them. You have one camera that just pans. And so you actually don't get a great view of who crosses the finish line first because there's not a camera. It's like you know what the NFL does today without having a goal line cam? They did that 100 years ago. That's what we're dealing with in America with NFL football today.
You mean the dumbest camera placement every week where there's not a camera on the goal line?
Yep, that one. And so there's not a camera, but like, so you can see them both kind of like throw their hands up right afterwards, but I don't think either one of them was really sure who won. Of course, we wouldn't be telling you the story if it wasn't Robinson. So yes, Robinson won. She was declared the winner, a time of 12.2 seconds. Canada would actually appeal this decision because they thought Rosenfeld won. Their appeal was denied. And so Robinson was given a gold medal, the only gold medalist in the women's 100 meter at the time, but is still the youngest all time. Of course, she comes back to America an absolute celebrity instantly. A Chicago Tribune reporter wrote, quote, "An unheralded, pretty, blue-eyed, blonde young woman from Chicago became the darling of the spectators when she flew down the cinder path, her golden locks flying to win." If that's not 1920s journalism, that whole spiel was quite incredible, wasn't it? Yes. Robinson would actually later state, quote, "I can remember breaking the tape, but I wasn't sure that I had won. It was so close." So even the runners, the finish was so tight that you see sprints today where the gap is bigger than it was then, which you would think that the competition, the variance within the competition then would be bigger. They all finished all 4 of them finished almost together. Like the gap has been bigger in recent Olympics by far. Also, to wrap up these games in particular, Robinson would win a silver medal as the anchor or the 4th runner in the U.S. 4x100 relay. But of course, she probably made the Canadians pretty upset by winning that. And so I think they vowed some revenge. They got the gold in the 4x100 relay. But her story is not over. But we're going to take a pause from it because I have a trivia question for you.
Let's go. One that I will completely bomb, undoubtedly.
It is not track and field related.
Well,
That would be a little. Be a
Carl
little.
Lewis.
I was gonna say just start naming names. So the question, you don't have to give me the person's name. If you know the person's name, maybe you might actually. You might know the person's name. I did not, but if you give me the person's name, that's extra credit. But what I want you to figure out is the sport,
Okay.
and the country the athlete hails from.
Okay.
So the question is, who holds the record for most Olympic medals by a female? This, I'm going to give you a caveat. This was the record, men or women, before Michael Phelps broke the record, I think in 2012, when he went on his gold spree. But there is the athlete who led men and women in all-time Olympic medals was a record for almost 50 years. Can you name the sport and or the country the person hails from?
Man,
It seems like when you it's I think it's more obvious. Maybe it might be more obvious than it initially sounds.
And this is for Summer Olympics or Olympics in general?
Just individual medals.
Individual medals in any Olympics.
Yep. But this sport is a summer sport.
Summer sport. So we got a summer sport. And it was a woman. A woman held the record beforehand?
Yes.
Okay. And a summer sport. It has to be either track and field or swimming. You're shaking your head. No, how could it not be track and field or swimming? Because there's multiple
that would
events.
be the two. That would be the obvious question. That would be the obvious one because Michael Phelps was just mentioned, and track and field is the subject of the episode, but it is not. It like when you realize the sport, you're gonna.
How is it not? Because you do the same race 4 times. You just do it 4 different ways, and they call it a different thing. That's how.
Really do.
Okay. So it's neither of those two things. So is this?
It's another sport. It's another sport where an individual athlete can compete in multiple disciplines within that sport.
Is it? Oh, is it tennis? Is it tennis?
No, it's not. It's not tennis.
And doubles. Okay. No. Not track and field, not swimming, not tennis. Obviously, this is not one of the big 4 major league sports at all because those are just one thing. Cycling?
Nope, not cycling. It actually it has been contested at every Summer Olympic Games since the very first one in 1896.
Not marathoning, because that's just the one thing.
Nope, not running. Nope. You're gonna. It's.
No. God bless. Are you okay? Do you? It's like it's sort of play the sport indoors or outdoors.
It's indoor. It is indoors.
Okay, it's an indoor sport.
It is indoors, and it's like it's an odd thing where like you are part of a team, but you also compete for You compete for team and individual medals, sort of at the same time.
I don't know what that means.
Yes, you do. It's gonna make so much sense in a minute.
I don't know what that means.
It's gonna make so much sense in a minute.
Oh my! You've got me. I don't know. Okay. So inside, is the individual and group at the same time.
Yep. There's four.
Wrestling?
Not
There's
wrestling.
women's wrestling.
Well, there might be. Actually,
No, I don't think there is. There is now, maybe.
There's actually four. There's like four singular individual exercises.
Oh, gymnastics. What is this?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Wow, I'm an idiot.
She is a gymnast. She is a gymnast. Now, what country besides the U.S. would you most closely associate to gymnastics at the Olympics?
It's tricky. It's one of the communist countries, but I don't know which one. I don't know if it's the Big Daddy or their little friend in Germany. I'm not sure.
The Big Daddy.
I'm going to guess Soviet Union.
She is from the Soviet Union. Her name is Larissa Latinina.
And she had the most gold because she could have won the individual exercises and the team gold. So you could get, I guess, 5, medals.
6 technically, because you could get all 4 individuals. You could get the all-around individual and get the all-around team.
Yep. So you could get 6 golds. And if it was if you start early enough, you could get 2 cycles, maybe 3 cycles.
She competed in the 1956 Olympics, the 1960 Olympics, and the 1964 Olympics. So she competed at 3. She has 9 golds, 5 silvers, and 4 bronzes for 18 total Olympic medals, which was a record until Michael Phelps. I think he has 23 now. He holds the all-time record for men or women, but she still holds the record for women's Olympic medals.
Good deal. Everybody's shouting at their consoles that it was gymnastics. People had gymnastics within 3 seconds.
I think I said exercises, and it
yeah, when you said it, as soon as you said exercises, I was like,
oh crap,
gymnastics, you moron. Wow. Okay. All right.
See, that was a good one. That was a good one. You would have never known her name, I assume.
No, I did not know that. I did not know that.
I did not either, but yeah, I did not realize that she held the men and women's record until this millennium, which is pretty sick. But very good, very good. See, that wasn't that bad. That was fun.
That was great.
Anyway,
I enjoyed that.
Anyway, so the aftermath of Betty Robinson winning her most unlikely gold medal. To the world, at least. Maybe the Americans knew, but I think it was a surprise to everybody else. She returned. She and the rest of the Olympic team returned to huge crowds, ticker tape parades. I think she got one when they got one when they arrived in New York City, and then when she got to Chicago, she had yet another one. People were pooling money together to buy her gifts. Her high school bought her a gift. People from her town bought her stuff. And here's the funny part. She had to go back to school that fall to finish high school because she turned 17, I think, like 20-something days after she won the gold medal, and she was not done with 12th grade with high school. So she had to go back and finish that. So she completed her senior year. That's just silly, isn't it?
Hey Betty, you've traveled round trip to Europe. You won an Olympic gold medal. Now we need you to sit down and finish your calculus homework. If you did.
It can't tell me nothing if that was me. That's crazy.
Oh, no.
So she completed her senior year, and then she enrolled in Northwestern. She wanted to study physical education, which kind of makes sense after her original interest and then her recent success. She wanted to become a track and field coach one day. I think she something said that she had her eye on being a coach for the 1936 Olympics. Well, there's just one big thing standing in the way of that. Not really in the way, but in between, was winning another gold at the 1932 Olympics, which was her ultimate initial goal. So Between 1928 and 1931, she would go on and set numerous records in various short distance sprints, everything from the 50 meter, 50 yards, 60, 70, 100 meter, like everything really short distance. She would go on and set records for at various levels. In late June 1931, she was training outside on a very hot day, and she wanted to cool down after her training session. Her coaches, because swimming did not use the same muscles as running, they did not want her to get into the water and use different muscles. What a world! Like today, that would be like, oh yes, great, cross train, do it. Yeah. Then the idea was not to use any other muscles and to only build the ones that you needed for your sport. So they wouldn't let her go swimming. And then somehow, as the story goes, her cousin has a small aircraft who is a licensed pilot, and he said that he would take her flying that afternoon to cool her off. So she gets in the plane. She puts on her leather cap and her goggles. Takeoff goes great. And this, I mean, you probably guess where this is headed, but unfortunately, about 600 feet into the air, the engine stalled and they crashed into a field. I just the thought of that is gut wrenching. Rescuers were able to reach them. They didn't make it very far. And they found both Robinson and the pilot, her cousin, to be very, very badly injured. Robinson had multiple broken bones. I think one place wrote that her leg was mangled. She had a huge laceration across her forehead, likely from glass or something. Once she was pulled from the wreckage, the man that did it either put her in the trunk of a car or put her in the bed of a truck. The accounts varied. And then didn't drive her to the hospital, but drove her to an undertaker because I guess he was that sure that she wouldn't make it. And so she actually ends up at an undertaker. Now, thank goodness the undertaker knew better. She was going in and out of consciousness, but she was breathing. And she did eventually make it to the hospital, but she had broken bones in her left leg and her left hip and her arm. She had internal injuries. She was in and out of consciousness for the next few days, and she would actually spend 11 weeks in the hospital. Once she was finally released, she was initially bound to a wheelchair. But of course, like she was in such great shape, because she was in such great shape, the doctor told her that that's really the reason she came out as well as she did. Her left leg would forever be shorter than her right one. That obviously gave her slimmer chances of ever walking again, much less running or competing at that Olympic level like she wants to. But she said, quote, "Of course I'm going to try and run again." She later recounted that about her experience right after the crash. And so I mentioned perseverance or resiliency is another word that comes to mind. But like she came from nowhere. Yeah. She made it to the pinnacle of the sport that she joined 6 months prior to reaching that pinnacle. Like she didn't have to do any of this to even think about, much less reaching the top of any sport or the sport that she was at the top of previously. Yet I'm about to tell you that she not only tries, but she pretty much succeeds at it.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind here is that y'all keep trying to tell me that planes aren't dangerous, and I think Betty Robinson would beg to differ, and so there's that. But the
I
fact,
knew you would say that.
Look, and the fact that she was taken to an undertaker instead of a hospital. They thought that was the correct move. Just shows you how bad off she was. And it's not like it was the wrong eye. Like penicillin wasn't invented until 1928. So, like, somebody that bad off with that much damage and that much infection, like, it wasn't the person that pulled her out of the wreckage. Probably, it wasn't. Some points in that person's life, somebody that looked like that either got amputated or they died soon, and those were the only options. Like, so I get that, but she's talking about, yeah, I'm gonna run it. Of course, I'm gonna run again. Like, what? What do you mean you're gonna run again?
Right.
No, you're
What do
not.
you mean?
Like, she's fast enough that she's outrunning death. Is really the idea. The bigger question here is, just like it's kind of fortune that she's found by her coach, right? She happens to catch this train that the coach is on, so let's get her signed up. That sets her on her path. She crashes in this plane in a marshy area. What happens if she crashes just on the ground, like solid
hard ground? Yeah.
Is it a better outcome because maybe they can try to land? Is it a worse outcome? Like how does that change this? Like, was that the most fortunate place and way for that to happen? Like, it's just another one of those things in these stories where it's these little moments that break the right way, that make the story what it is. And she's gotten fortunate in a very big way there, especially for 1930s aviation and health
and medical, medicine.
To be able to come back from that is incredible in the first place. Added to her story is
right,
not possible. But
yeah, I feel like medicine didn't really take off until after World War II, because that's when medications really started becoming known about. Like you said, penicillin wasn't a thing until late 20s. Lots of other things, because there was so many injuries and so much casualty in World War II that was kind of like the birthplace of the modern American hospital also. And so, like, the hospital that she would have been taken to in 1931 was probably not nearly as equipped as, especially if she was in a rural area too, right? Like, who knows how close the closest hospital might have been, or what. I mean, even hospitals today, there's like a level 1 trauma center. There's only so many of those, and if you are not, I mean, if you get injured to the point of needing a level 1 trauma center, if you're not airlifted to that trauma center, you might not make it. And there's only so many of those. Like, most hospitals can't treat a level 1 trauma patient. Now, that's today.
Yeah.
In 2023, that's the case. I mean, she had a mangled leg and broken bones and internal injuries, and like you said, she still is like, yeah, why wouldn't I try and run again? Like, are you crazy? Are you crazy? You're asking me that.
Yeah, you're the crazy one. Yeah. I think if I'm right, World War II is the first war we ever, and that's only like a decade after this, but World War II is the first war we ever had where more deaths were from fighting than they were from sicknesses and things that happened afterwards, just to back that point up. So yeah. Where we were health wise then, crazy.
They're not saving as many people as they're losing at that point, especially if they come to them in this sort of shape. So
certainly.
So of course, at this point, this was the summer of 1931 when the crash happened. So of course, the 1932 Olympics were a little out of the picture at this point, but in her mind, 1936 Olympics was still a possibility. She as she healed again, it took a long time for her to heal, 5 years from 1931 to the possibility of even being able to qualify for the Olympics in 1936. And Robinson said that she would still run, quote, not as fast as I used to, but fast enough to make the team. Well, she healed and rehabbed and all of that stuff. She got out of her wheelchair. They would take her on walks around the house, and then they would take her outside, and then they would take her around the block, and then she would run a little bit, and then she would run a little bit more. And the next thing she knew, she was back to training. Now, her left leg was, again, forever not the same. Is that the right way to say it? Forever not the same. Yeah, that sounds fine. So the crouching position that you start a sprint in, like the 100-meter dash, it was just not possible for her anymore because she just couldn't get down and her left leg couldn't bend that way. But she could still run. And for you track and field enthusiasts, you would know that only the first 4x100-meter runner in the relay starts in a crouched position in the blocks. The other 3 start from a standing position. And so she made the 1936 Olympic team as a member of the 4x100 relay. Now, to put this into perspective, we have crossed quite a bit of time here between her first and her second appearance in the Olympics. She was and still is the youngest ever gold medalist in the 100-meter dash at the Olympics at 16 years old. That was 8 years ago. She would be 24 in the 1936 Olympics. And at this point, she is the oldest member of the 4-person relay team that would comprise the 4x100-meter dash. The German relay team at this particular Olympics set the world record in their qualifying heat to make it to the finals. They were obviously favored to win. And during the final race, coming into the final handoff from the 3rd runner to the 4th runner, the Germans were leading by 9 meters, according to reports. That seems pretty insurmountable if you are just considering a person running to make up that distance. Well, there's one pretty easy way to get disqualified from a relay race in track and field, and that is to drop the baton. And they did. The German team dropped the baton on the handoff from the 3rd to the 4th runner. You can go watch this too. The Germans were so far ahead, like they could have about walked. I mean, they handed off. The runners fumbled. They almost came to a complete stop after fumbling the baton before the second place, the anchor runner for the Americans, came through the crowd, because they're all like bunched up together, came through the crowd to finish the 4th leg. Like the Germans were that far ahead. Robinson ran 3rd for the U.S. She was the closest runner to the Germans when they got disqualified. And so I wonder at what point in that exchange did she realize what had happened. But they made a clean handoff. She handed off to Helen Stevens, who was the 100-meter champion that year at that Olympics, and she would go on and win gold for the U.S. Funnily enough, Helen Stevens, fun fact, would be inducted into the National Track and Field Hall of Fame before Betty Robinson, which is amazing. But anyway, they would go on to win gold, and so Betty Robinson goes from unknown nobody just trying to catch a train to gold medalist, celebrity in America, to basically at an undertaker's table, to the point that people thought that she wouldn't make it, all the way back to running at an Olympic level to win a gold medal. I mean, I think the only possible way that this could have been a better story, I don't even know if that's possible, but I mean, she was part of a gold medal team, but if she had done it at 100-meter, maybe, but that should not take away from what she had to do to get back to the point that she made.
No, this is, as we've said in some of our other stories, this is a movie type, a movie script type story, and I think it's probably been made into one by
100%.
But the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, that this kind of story really can't happen anymore because we market sports so much to so many people. Like it's accessible and it's available, and we've done a good job of having health and physical education in our schools. So we identify people really early on, right? This kind of story is unique to like that 20th century, early 20th century America, where you can find these people who are just so good at stuff from the middle of nowhere, and they can instantly achieve these great things. And she has this added like low of lows, almost died before returning to the top. That's something that you will not see in very many stories or from very many people. You can't take anything away from her, because I mean, just imagine what that recovery must have felt like, right? Like put yourself in that position. It would have been so easy to say, I'm good. And
Yeah.
to go fulfill that dream she had, still go be a track and field coach, help people out, do what you got to do to try and grow the sport. But just to say, nah, I'm good. I'm not running anymore. She didn't, and she won a gold medal. So yeah, perseverance, key word for her story, and something we should all kind of take out of the story, because that's incredible. We say incredible a lot, but it is.
It really is.
Amazing.
And she seems to be incredibly humble in all of this stuff, because what I said in the intro, where she kept her gold medals in a candy box in her top dresser drawer, like every professional athlete today has everything they've ever done in shadow boxes and jersey boxes hanging on their walls. And I mean, it's almost like because she never thought that it was possible, she did it, and she seemed to enjoy it, and she remained close to the sport for a really long time. She was an official for track and field for quite a long time after this. But just to be and her children and her grandchildren were also interviewed along with her going forward, and that's all they talked about was like she was passed up for like the first class of the Track and Field Hall of Fame. Her kids and her grandkids were more mad than she was.
Right.
And when she finally was introduced, as she was in the fourth class, because she was in the fourth ever class in the USA National Track and Field Hall of Fame, she was quoted as being what would you call it, as humble. Really, is like, I didn't realize that people cared about something I did so long ago, kind of thing. Just like, that was a long time ago, guys. Like, why is it still a big deal? Like, I truly believe she meant that. It seems like it from everything that I saw. So she also, to kind of wrap this up, she carried the Olympic torch for the Atlanta Games in 1996. Which she was quite old at that point. She was in her mid 80s, but she refused any help walking or holding the torch.
Good for her.
So she did it on her own. She did it on her own volition. But she would pass away on May 18th, 1999. She was diagnosed with cancer and Alzheimer's disease, but she died at the age of 87. To think that like her life could have been cut at 20, it would be 19.
Mm-hmm.
That plane crash would have been at 19 years old,
right there at it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And to live to 87 after all that. I mean, it's an amazing story, all in all.
Yes, absolutely. A lesson in humility and perseverance that probably would benefit all of us. I don't know.
Especially you. I'm just kidding.
Especially me. I don't know. I don't know if we could add anything else to that. I mean, that's just a remarkable life.
Pretty well wrapped up. I agree. So that is what you don't know about Betty Robinson. If you have any other ideas, any other profiles, we do keep a list. We are working through them. Keep giving them to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our social medias, wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, we'll see ya.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of What You Don't Know About Sports. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please leave us a review, 5 stars only, and hit that subscribe button wherever you listen. If you have a great sports story, we want to hear about it. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WYDKAS Podcast, and on our YouTube channel at What You Don't Know About Sports Podcast. All episodes are written, recorded, and edited by us. Stay tuned for the next episode.